And now we're going to do a biography for Dave. So I'm going to invite John. Oh, I should introduce myself. I'm sorry. My name is Alan Lowe. And I've known Dave, it's got to be for almost 35 years. I took his class. I was a student years ago, and then became his colleague and a dear friend. John, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm John J. Murakami. I'm one of Dave's students. Dave, as a student, I guess, Dave took me under his wing a long time ago and really embraced me and taught me everything he knew, introduced me to all of his friends and family, and I'm really thankful for Dave because he really made me the artist that I am today.
So it's our extreme honor to be up here with you today, to pay tribute to our dear friend. Now, John and I have known Dave for many years, for quite some time, and the family was insistent that we both be up here. But we didn't want to stand up here like presenters at the Academy Awards. So we decided to do something a little different. We were going to do something very much in keeping with the style of Dave. And as you know, Dave was a great instructor, and he loved to do these chalk talks. So we're going to do our version of chalk talk. Do you want to come closer? So it's kind of like Penn and Teller. Penn and Teller. Because Penn is the big one that talks, right? And Teller is the quiet one that doesn't talk at all. So instead, since John draws better than I do, John's going to be at the board.
Much more. So
since I'm the better looking one. So, of course, now we wanted to do something that was reverent and respectful, and something that was really spoke of the Lord.
we'll be getting t-shirts.
And Dave's niece Karen is doing sign language. So Karen, if you think of a funnier joke, just sign something funny. So wait a second. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I got a pal from Kalamazoo. Years have gone by, and my, oh my, how he grew. Oh, wait, I skipped one. It's easy. Don't want to boast, but I know he's the toast of a Kalamazoo, zoo, 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 zoo. Years have gone by, my, how he grew. He was Dave Thorne, and he was proud to be born in the Kalamazoo, zoo, 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 zoo. Yes, Dave Thorne was born on April 23rd, 1930, the youngest of 3 children, to James and Mary Thorne in a little town with a funny name, Kalamazoo, Michigan. And with a birthplace with a funny name like that, how could he not grow up doing something funny? So he grew up in a very loving household, in a very conservative Methodist upbringing. Now one day, when Dave was about 5 years old, while visiting his grandparents in the farmhouse up in Plainville, Michigan. Now Michigan is like this, Plainville, Michigan. He noticed a black and white calendar hanging on the kitchen wall. And there was a grass hut with swaying palm trees and lovely hula maidens in grass skirts. And intrigued, he asked his grandmother, "Where is this?" And she replied, "Hawaii." And Dave's eyes widened. And he immediately responded, "One day, I'm going to live there." Cartoonist, right? Like many of the cartoonists sitting here today, Dave spent most of his childhood in his bedroom, drawing constantly. He used to love drawing Disney characters. He would draw Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, anything he could get his hands on. And you gotta remember now, this was in the days before DVDs, right? Before movies, not movies, but before DVDs, before videotapes, right? Even before television. I mean, he used to draw references from the movie posters and other memorabilia. He used to love looking at the newspaper, reading the comic strips, right? He loved the funny papers, as he used to call them. And his favorites were the Cats and Jammer Kids, right? Crazy Cat, he loved Crazy Cat. Alley-Oop, Little Abner, and Terry and the Pirates. Now, like all budding cartoonists, Dave eventually branched out creating his own characters. And his bedroom was literally covered with hundreds of his own drawings. And finally, in 9th grade, he made his first sale. It was his big break. He sold his first cartoon. And he was hooked. From that day forward, he realized that he could make money and do what he loved. And he used to say, when you do what you love, you don't want to stop. Nobody wants to see me, they want to see you. I told you. Nobody puts baby in a corner. Pay no attention to the language. Okay, so, in 1948, Dave graduated from Central High School. Go Giants! And he went on to college exactly 4.3 miles away at Western Michigan University. Go Broncos! Right in the heart of Kalamazoo. And there he enrolled in the Fine Arts program. And it was during his early college years that Dave discovered the fine art of boxing. Dave used to tell unsuspecting folks, do you know I'm a pugilist? Dave used to tell, Dave loved the gentlemanly sport of boxing. It was mano a mano, man against man. Good versus evil, intellect versus brute strength. As a lightweight, Dave competed in the Golden Globes amateur boxing competition. And apparently Dave could pack a wall. He could punch so hard that he could knock the heavy bag off the hooks several times. Dave finished 2 years at Western Michigan University, and then he made the life-changing decision to go west, young man. And he moved to Pasadena City College in California. Go Lancers! To continue his studies in fine arts. Now, having spent his entire youth smack dab in the middle of the Midwest, he now found himself surrounded by non-white people for the first time. Hispanics, Asians, African Americans, Native Americans, Asians, Pacific Islanders, Chinese, Japanese, Hawaiians. It was a cultural mashup, a true melting pot, and Dave loved it. I mean, he especially took great interest in learning all the different cultures, their foods and languages, and all of which couldn't be more foreign from where he grew up. And this is the thing, the more he celebrated these differences, the more he embraced the qualities that make us all the same. And in this way, Dave never saw race. Dave was an artist that was really colorblind. By now, don't give me the applause, it really doesn't go well. We don't want you to. By now, it was 1951, and it was the middle of the Korean War, and Uncle Sam was looking for young men to serve. Now, Dave had heard that 3 out of 4 men were drafted into the Marines. Now, can you imagine little Dave in the Marines? So instead of running the risk, Dave enlisted in the Coast Guard. Because it had the shortest enlistment period of 3 years. He completed his basic training in Camp May, New Jersey, where unfortunately, there were no young women to be found anywhere. Eventually, he was shipped off to Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, where luckily there were women and beer. It was during this time in the service that Dave developed an ear for languages, quickly learning the popular Japanese song, Ginzan Kankan Musume, made famous by the 1949 movie of the same name. A happy-go-lucky tune, the song tells of a can-can dancer in the Ginza who doesn't have any money and must wait around to make money by, well, anyway, because during the war. It was popular among servicemen returning from Japan, and Dave impressed everyone with his ability to learn and sing fluent Japanese. Years later, Dave would recall the slightly politically incorrect lyrics in a calligraphic study for type class for school. Now, it was in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. It was in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin that young Dave fell in love with a beautiful woman with whom he proposed and who would one day eventually become his ex-fiancée. You guys all thought I was already enough? No, Dave had fallen for a tall, blonde, Scandinavian woman, the spin image of Lorraine. Eventually, the relationship ended, and when Dave was done with the service in the Coast Guard, he decided to stay in Wisconsin because his sister was also living in Milwaukee. Is that Lorraine? Or is that... In 1954, Dave enrolled in the art education program at the Wisconsin State College, Go Green Dogs, which would later become the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Go Panthers. 2 years later, Dave was involved in the United Methodist campus ministry and was scheduled to go to Sapporo, Japan on a mission, but as luck would have it, he developed mono, and he had to stay home for a year. But all those things worked out for the greater good. Unable to go on the mission, he worked the registration table for the church's upcoming Hawaiian luau. When a beautiful incoming second semester freshman from Hawaii caught his eye. Alex Lorraine. Just so happens Lorraine's sister, Flora, was a member of the Methodist Church. And that was Dave's in. All great relationships go, they took their time to get to know each other, going out on group dates or picnics or parties, always in a group though, never alone. Finally, on a chilly November night, Dave got up the nerve to ask Lorraine out on a proper date, one-on-one. But unfortunately, this was a Wednesday, and this was for the upcoming Thanksgiving weekend. And Dave asked if she'd like to go out on Friday. And Lorraine said, no, I'm busy. So Dave said, well, what about Saturday? And Lorraine said, no, she's busy. Well, Thursday was out because that was Thanksgiving. So desperate, he said, well, how about tonight? And Lorraine said, well, what time? Wow, almost 3 strikes and you're out. In 1958, Dave graduated from UWM with a BS in art education and began his lifelong career in education in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Manitowoc, something new. After 2 years of courtship, Dave and Lorraine were married in 1958. And a quick 10 months later, we counted, 10 months later, son Mitchell was born. It was during this time that Dave taught art and music in intermediate school, and it had a profound effect on him. It was then he discovered that he had a passion and a gifting for teaching.